Welcome to B2BChats, sponsored by HR Simplified. Today we've got Chad Roberts with us. He is the guy that looks after Thrive Pay, if I'm correct, Chad?
Correct.
That's your business. Okay, cool. So welcome to everybody. The idea here is that we talk to people like Chad that started their own businesses, that are startups, and that need to maybe even further than startup, and what they did to get to that point. What did they have to go through? What were some of the things they've learned and that kind of thing? So that's going to be the topic for today. And I'm going to start speaking to Chad a bit. So Chad, tell me, obviously you're the CEO and the founder of Thrive Pay. You've got a few things out there that's around. We can talk about that if you like, about your different products and your applications. But let's go into the start. Where did all of this start? Did you usually work with a company? Were you like a normal employee like the rest of us, and then decided to, hey, I want to become self-employed? What was your thoughts around that?
So I had quite a turbulent start to get to where I am now. I did a lot of studying, about 8 years of studying with no formal qualification.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot, but definitely had an issue with finishing projects, or in this case, degrees.
Yeah.
I got my first formal job in sports development. It was like a type of management degree or management job. I had to manage sports coach for a non-profit.
Yes.
My background was always actually, I was very sporty and I wanted to go into sport, and I got a job managing sports coaches, but unless you AB de Villiers, it's difficult to make a career.
I can imagine that.
Out of sports. So I had my first job, and funny enough, I'm now obviously working with NPOs in a niche market, but I volunteered on our fundraising committee from about 18 years of age, not knowing that I would end up in the NPO space.
Yeah, I was actually so. Is it the love for NPO that took you there, or did you see a niche in the market, or? It
was at the time complete fluke. I was looking for something to do. I found out there was a fundraising committee, and I thought, let me give it a bash.
Yeah. Well, nice, man.
I was on the fundraising committee, and then after a couple of years of studying at the school, English psychology, I got an offer through someone connected to the school to get my first job, which lasted a total of 6 months.
Okay, yeah.
During that job, while volunteering on the school, came up with an idea to build an online networking portal for past pupils.
Yeah.
And my job only lasted 6 months because I had a Friday afternoon, evening that went on quite late with my then business partner, where we used the boardroom to brainstorm and mind map this whole amazing networking business
journey
we're going to develop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my boss found us. We ended up falling asleep after a very late night of brainstorming, and there were nice poof cushions in the office. So we fell asleep, and he found the next morning with our mind map of how we're going to conquer the world.
Pink in the brain.
Exactly. He then politely invited me to go and conquer the world
on your own. Oh wow!
That was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, so that's when you put the peg in the ground and said, "I'm not going back to work for a boss. I'm going to go work for myself." And you started coming up with it. So when you started this entrepreneurial thing, did you focus on this idea that you guys were working on in that boardroom that night, or did you do something else?
Yeah, so that was the beginning, and it was a beautiful failure that contributed to probably the majority of where I am today. It was a school networking platform, and we had no idea what we were doing, how to do it.
Yeah.
We started off with WordPress, a membership platform, and off we went. We got a few clients. It was an awesome experience, and it failed slow enough to put food on the table for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then eventually I made a decision to pack it in. But it was a beautiful learning curve.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's a nice story because you saw the end coming, which is nice. It's not like you saw the light coming down the tunnel and knew it was a train. Some people don't see that. Sometimes your carpet gets pulled out from underneath you because a regulation changes. Or I knew some people that had a whole host of developers doing stuff for online gambling, and the law changed in South Africa, not allowing it anymore. They literally closed the door overnight. That's kind of extensive.
Yeah, we were essentially a business networking platform, directory / job portal for alumni.
Yeah.
And it was a very popular alumni CRM in South Africa at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And all it took was for them to add a business directory and job portal to their current platform, and we were almost completely redundant. So kind of saw it happening. They released 1 or 2 features, and I thought, shucks.
I heard this thing the other day, which was kind of, it stuck with me, where they said pioneers have arrows in their backs. And for me, that's such a good saying, because it's the guy that's in the front, that's forging this first thing. And now because he's in the front, he's getting hits from the back. And there's always going to be somebody that's got more money, that can develop something quicker than you, that can take something to market quicker than you. So you should always, although you may be in the lead of something, you should always have something that differentiates you from the rest, because they can quickly copy what you've done. And that's a good example. And also another thing that I take from what you just said is the marketing side of it. You need to research the market and understand if there's somebody else playing in the same space. And we've made that same mistake where I've thought, we've got this amazing feature. And I found out that 5 other companies has done it already. And it's like, okay, well, we need to come up with something else that they haven't done yet. So you just need to go through that. But that's a great story. That's nice. So once you were done with that, did you go into the Thrive Pay, or is there something in between that and now?
So I was working with a lot of schools. I was doing a few talks on networking, and I got introduced to a few school foundations.
Yeah.
Did some digital marketing for them. So as part of my journey to sell my networking platform, I ended up interacting with a lot of schools and a lot of schools' non-profit arms, and got into digital fundraising. I kind of saw that the end was coming for my platform, and I started to try and wedge myself into spaces that could generate revenue as quickly as I could. And I just started proposals and online raffles and whatever I could do to help schools raise money, and more importantly to keep
raise money. Keep the food on the table.
Where I'd ended up, I found myself down this path in in a market or in an industry that I didn't study for. I was far enough in that I was like, let me just find a way, get creative and make money. And I then started to do monthly giving campaigns, getting monthly donors to commit to schools, foundations, non-profits. And that was the beginning of when I started using other debit order companies, and what evolved into my now business, which is effectively a debit order company in a niche market. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah, great story. I mean, you've answered a lot of my questions actually already in just the chats we've had. No, that's perfect. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, if you look at people like yourself, and I mean, we have very different journeys that we've done. I mean, I'm also, let's call it an entrepreneur or a startup owner or whatever. And I also went to study. I also, I did electronic engineering, so it's totally different than you did the English and the psychology side of things. I also kind of failed to finish. That last exam I just never got to, because I got a job in the meantime, and I went on with that. And I then started working at companies, and I've got 20 years worth of corporate experience behind me. That's where I worked all these years. And then I decided, what? I love what I do from a data point of view. And we then decided to start Data Simplified and HR Simplified and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if I listen to your story, you've never done the corporate thing really. You've done the 6 month. You're like a serial entrepreneur. You really started from the start. You decided, I'm doing this thing. I'm not working for somebody. I love working for myself, and it's stressful. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm also, sometimes stress gets to you. But if you had to go break that down, what do you think an entrepreneur needs? What would you say if you look at somebody and you say, oh, you can be one, or no, you can't? I mean, I would say, to give you an example, something like he has to be determined. He has to be goal orientated, that type of stuff. So what do you think an entrepreneur needs? Do you think there's a certain qualification they need?
I can only speak
By yourself, yes.
I do have an inkling. So I've discovered recently that without execution, you're going to fail. Without the ability to do the hard work, you will fail. So I think that's a necessity. So what I'm about to say doesn't disqualify that. It's probably
yes.
a very important part. But I think problem solving, more inquisitiveness, combined with problem solving. So just asking questions. What is this? Why does it exist? How much does it cost? How could it be better? So
exactly.
the ability to question just about everything that you see and try and problem solve, because I think that's where most successful businesses come from that are not the traditional businesses like a law firm. Because if you start a law firm, it's a career made into a business.
Yes.
But startups and interesting businesses that are successful always start off with hundreds of questions, hundreds of solutions. Probably the first 100 are the wrong solutions, and to persist with trying to problem solve until you have found value where there wasn't originally value. So I think you have to be incredibly inquisitive and then have a passion for problem solving, because you can be inquisitive without a desire to solve problems. So I'd say inquisitiveness, problem solving, and you have to obviously enjoy those two things. You have to revel in them.
Yes,
how do I solve this problem? How do I fix it? What are the options? So that's what's kept me going. I think if I count from the asking my mom to knit beanies to sell them at high school.
Okay, so you've really been into sales like from a young age.
No, from then until now, I've started, I think, 9 or 10 different things. I sold cricket balls to schools, like.
Okay, so you've always, you're a perfect example of a serial entrepreneur then.
But I always said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I know this is a stupid idea, but I promise you, eventually I'm going to get a good one.
You know what? When we started looking at, we were very much the standard form, the little cookie cutter. We were a development house. You know us from that part of the business, and then we got to a point where we realized, listen, we can't always just build the business by creating these projects. That's a once-off ad hoc thing where you make some money and then you move on, because you need that annuity income, and that's kind of where you're also going. You need to get the pot cooking. You need to keep the business growing, and that makes a projectable income because it's scaled based on size. So we then decided to go do a software as a service, our HR platform, and we also at that stage we had a list of 12 products that we thought of during the time to say, okay, you know what, this is something that the market needs, and we put it down and we made a little design around it. We put it in a folder. And we went through all of those, and we ended up with about 12 of them. And then we decided today is the day. And we went through those 12. And funny enough, that day, we got a call from somebody that told us SAP was discontinuing some kind of HR module. And we said, hey, wait a minute, we have a HR module. We have an HR product that's on our list. Let's look at that. And we then decided to go look at that. And about a year and a half later, the first code rolled out. So I know that feeling. It's of trying all these things and having to pick one. I'm still sad there's some of those ones in there that's really good ideas. I think we will never forget them. We'll probably go back to them a bit later. But anyway, okay, so that's good. I think I agree with you. I think an entrepreneur needs to be a go-getter. He has to go and, if he doesn't know why something is happening, he has to find out. So inquisitive is very important. If it means in your world, go do a YouTube video, go do that. One of the things I found very, very interesting is the marketing side of things. Learning how, like you spoke about SEO, learning how SEO works, learning how marketing works, learning how Facebook ads go, how looking at Google ads, all these things. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, just to chip in there. There was a long time when I thought I've come up with this amazing solution for non-profits. Everyone's going to love it. It's going to sell like, bacon roll on an early morning, but it doesn't work like that. So it was so fascinating to sit and find out about SEO and bootstrap it. Pay somebody to train you because you can't afford an SEO agency. Pay somebody to train you and stay up late at night and try this and try that. And I think that's probably where the resilience comes in. And I don't know, you got to be a little bit nuts it'll be a little bit nuts at times.
You know what? I've got this problem that I want to see instant results. So I'll tweak something, and I won't be able to wait more than a day or two to see if it's worked. And I think, no, it hasn't worked yet, and I'll go change it again. And you should leave things. Yeah, you should leave things a bit.
I do that with my SEO. I do new backlinks, and I Google electronic mandates and Google it 30 minutes later as if it's changed.
See, exactly. It's like a drug, unfortunately. No, I know that feeling. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm also, the marketing side of things for me is interesting, and that's where I spend a lot of my education these days, is researching how those things work, how they fit together, and I think it's actually amazing how much you can learn without doing a proper course by consuming stuff off the internet and well, obviously from trusted sources. But yeah, so I've got another question for you here. One of the things I wanted to get into. So what's have you made mistakes? And if you've made mistakes, is there anything you want to share with us? An example. I'll give you one when we're done. I'll tell you what one of my mistakes was.
I think a recurring mistake, probably it's not my biggest single mistake. If you add them all, it's the same pattern that's put myself in hardship.
Come back,
Not fully valuing my product or my time.
Very true.
From coming from never really being formally employed, with a market-related salary, a nice big salary coming to your account every month. When I left my job, which was entry level, and started, in my head, I'm like, I just need this per month to survive.
Yeah.
And every bit of business I could get or a subscription I could sell, I would undervalue it, discount it, sometimes give people free license for X amount, just to, without saying, what have I got? What is the value of it? What is my time worth?
Yes.
And I put myself through ups and downs because I was so desperate for my ideas to work and for people to subscribe to my platform that I'd be more desperate to get clients than to fairly value my product or my services.
That's very good advice.
Sure, it put me under pressure. I get someone who was happy to pay my subscription fee that I quoted, and I could see someone else who didn't want to sign up, or they didn't have a website. And sometimes I built them a free website just so I could install my electronic mandate order system on their website. And it was a week of free work basically. And at the end of that month, I thought, and it's like, it's difficult because you believe in what you're doing so much, you want everyone to use it, but it's not it's not the solution. You have to be fair in your pricing, and if you're not pricing your product correctly, you're going to put strain on your business, and it can actually stop you growing because you're putting a lot of effort into no revenue.
Yes,
and that can harm the long-term growth. So I have to keep reminding myself of that.
Yeah, that's what you just said there is very valuable advice. I must say, I actually, I have that same problem where, we spend years learning what we know today. I've been in IT my whole life. I know how certain things work that other guys don't because I've studied it and I've taken the time to educate myself on them. And now you'll have a client that asks you for something and you just jump in and because you can do it, you just do it. Yeah. But it's actually not something that's a billable activity. And at the end of the day, let's be honest, we're all in business to make money. We're not in business to give freebies. Otherwise, none of us would be in business. So I actually value what you just said because I think a lot of people need to hear that. Don't undervalue yourself or your experience, what you're worth, and definitely not your product. I think I also got to that point not that long back where this is a price. Either you pay it because that's what it's worth. Because we were also free trials for 6 months and all kinds of stuff. And at the end of the 6 months, what happens? They go away. They don't stay. So that just shows you that, I also realized that you'll see with us, our first 7 days are free. People register, they don't do anything. They register and they just leave it because they're not paying for it.
Engagement whatsoever.
Exactly. You need to, if you had paid for it. No. Exactly. No, 100% true. That's definitely true. So tell me, last thing I wanted to chat about. What do you having done so many things in your life, do you follow structure? When you do a business, do you register the business? Do you have an accountant? Do you follow certain standards in your business? Because I know sometimes that's a topic that people just like to. you've got a choice. Either you do like a sole mandate and you do none of the stuff, or you go to register as a PTY, and then you have to submit your financials, and you have to do all these things. What's your opinion about that for a startup?
That's a very well-timed question, Michael, because as we speak, not 20 minutes ago, I've just given my entire database to my new accountant to start getting my act together.
Ah, so nice. That's good.
So it's been a long journey to the point where I've decided that now I need to structure this properly, run it properly, put myself on payroll.
Great. That's good news.
My advice is to, if and when you think you have a solution, a good idea, a business, is to initially just go for it. Because I made a mistake I had maybe 2 or 3 formal businesses that I started, selling sports equipment, my online networking platform. I spent 4 months registering and working out shares and business partners and a website, and I put so much emphasis on everything other than the product that I was selling.
Yes.
And I could have spent those 6 months bootstrapping a minimum viable product together and going to 5 potential clients and saying, would you use this?
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's more scary to do a product and take it to someone. It's much more fun to sit in an office and plan and do logos.
Of course,
Actually, that's got nothing to do with the core of it, which is, for example, in the sports business, this is the quality of the cricket ball I want to sell. These are my potential clients. This is my price point, and to get some samples, go to them and offer them, make them an offer. Say, what will you pay for this? Because if they're not going to order, what's the point of having a business?
Exactly, it's going to sell nothing.
Invoicing template and all of that. So, yes, I think that for me, it's ended up working better now to focus on the product and trying to get some sales. I've invoiced from my personal account with some branding on it, and eventually gone, right, now I've got a real business. Let's employ an accountant and sort it all out. So I think it's important to have structure, and it helps me to have structure. The more structure I've got, the better I do in my business. But I think it can be bad to get hung up on starting a business instead of working out, do I have a viable product or whatever it is.
I think that's good advice. The idea about get to a certain point where you think, okay, what I've got now is the future.
Yes.
And it's maybe a bit difficult to make that decision. I think some people, I'm one of those people that I've got a bottle of 20-year-old KWV sitting on my shelf. And I've always made these promises. When I get my first client, I'm going to open it. And then it is when I get my second client, I'm going to open it. And then it just keeps on going. You always extend that gratification, that deadline, as to what you need to achieve. And you know what? That's wrong. You should celebrate the small wins as well. I think that's something I will contribute to the session. So I think that's important. So if you can make that decision and say that this what I've got here now is really, I believe my future is in this, then try and do things correct and do it to a certain degree that everything's in place. I always tell people it's easier to do it from the start than to try and put it in after the fact. Same thing with HR. Small company, 2 or 3 employees, there's nothing stopping you from getting an HR system. Get it in place from the start. If new people join, they just start using it. If you wait till you're 10 or 20 staff and you try and put it in then you have 10 or 20 people kicking against the idea because it's extra work.
I think what's great now is that everything's so much more accessible.
Oh, yes.
I mean, 20 years ago, the idea of starting a business, the idea of accounting, now you can download Sage or QuickBooks or whatever it is and watch 3 videos and off you go.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I think to be an entrepreneur now we're a lot luckier than what people were in the past.
I think so, but I also think there's a lot more stress on us these days than there was in the past. In the past, you needed that one little thing. Maybe you're a fitting and turning shop that you open. You just need a ladle to be able to shape this thing. These days, you need to be able to do fitting and turning. You have to be a body shop. You have to be a spray painter, everything, and then maybe you can survive. So I think with times things change, but we kind of will get there. But thanks. I think that last part was very valuable. And is there anything else you think that we can mention that our audience might find some value in, some of your learnings maybe? And if there isn't anything, it's fine. One thing. Yeah. Because
I've and you could call it being a bit, or want, but I think in the beginning, and maybe this is because there was a lack of me doing a formal business degree.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when I came up with an idea, it was to conquer the world.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to build this networking platform that everybody in the world's going to use.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a gazillionaire.
Yeah. Gazillionaire. Yeah.
And I encounter a lot of people who, say, I've got this idea and it's going to be an app and it's going to change the world.
Yeah.
And I find it awesome and invigorating and so fun to have my little business and for it to be solving problems in a little niche market and to be creative and all the fun things that go around having a business are not necessarily starting like the next Facebook. And those ideas are like one in a million. So for me, it's to be very realistic about your idea. Some people, it's their preference to go and conquer the world. But I just love owning a business. So for me, when you think of your business idea, there's so many opportunities in smaller markets than what we perceive. I've ended up in a niche market by accident. And for me, it's more fun to solve problems in a niche market than to just be a debit order company.
Exactly.
To get into interesting features in a specific industry or whatever it might be. So I think a lot of people have these big ideas to start a business and they can almost be too big. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. You try to do too many things. And
so
that's,
for me,
you need to focus. Yeah.
Correct. The more granular you get and the more problems you solve on a granular level, it's the higher likelihood you're going to find a problem that someone hasn't solved yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Makes sense. So if you take a business or an industry or a market and you go very granular and you try and find out what the problems or hooks are on a little level, you can actually, it can be a big problem that you've solved within a specific industry market or whatever the case may be.
So what differentiates you from the rest of them? That's very very important. So thank you, Chad. That was insightful, and thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. It was nice catching up, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future. And you must have a great day ahead, and enjoy the weekend if we don't speak again.
You too.
Cool.
Have a good one. Cheers,
Okay,
Michael.
you too, man. Thanks. Speak to you soon. Cheers.